it's a very great privilege, and would have to say a very bittersweet pleasure to be saying these words on behalf of Steve, because he's been such a fantastic colleague for so many years. Steve, as Radhika just mentioned, is a very eminent anthropologist in China. And he first came to the University of Washington in 1974. So he's been here for 46 years, which I think is a really incredibly distinguished record. And of course, he has been part of the anthropology department during that time, where he has also had his turn at serving as chair. But he's also been a faculty member in international studies, in the School of Environmental and Forestry Studies. He's been an active faculty member involved with the Center for Demography. He's been involved with the honors program, where he's also acted as director. He's also served as a curator of Asian ethnology for the Burke Museum. And he also is the director for an academic exchange with Sichuan University in China. So this just gives you a picture of the incredibly diverse ways in which Steve has contributed to this campus and to this department. Steve's research is based on extensive field work, first in Taiwan, and then in Southwest China among the nationality minority in Liangshan. He's a gifted linguist. He's fluent in Mandarin Chinese. He speaks also fluently Chinese dialect of Hokkien, and he speaks Nuozu, which is the language spoken by the Liangshan group where he does his research. He's been a very productive scholar, being author or editor of more than 17 books. He's also a series editor for the University of Washington Press, the series entitled Studies on Ethnic Groups in China, which has been a major venue for the publication of research in this area. One of the things that I most admire about Steve is that he has sustained such a vibrant energy in expanding his range of interests and expertise throughout his career. It inspires me to see how he follows his interests into new areas. He has taught a broad range of courses on China and Taiwan. He's been very, very important in building our departmental strength in environmental anthropology. He's taught many, many courses on kinship and family studies, and also in the museum. He has a very distinguished record of graduate training. He has chaired more than 49 PhD committees, and some of those PhDs actually come from the nationality minority where he does his work. He loves working with students. In addition to the doctoral students he has launched, many of the undergraduate students that he personally mentored have gone on to distinguished careers in academia and also in the nonprofit sector. Somehow, in the midst of all of these academic activities, he's also found time to establish a school called the Cool Mountain School in Liangshan, which opens up opportunity pathways for youth, youth in this remote part of China. So I think that I joined the faculty in 1991. Steve was already well established here. It was wonderful to be a colleague with him, especially as we shared this research area of China. And it's very unusual for an anthropology department to have the luxury of having more than one faculty member that are focused on a single area. Sometimes I think it's luck, but other times I think maybe it might just be a combo. And there's a story here, and I'm going to tell it. The year was 1984. I was still a scruffy graduate student. Steve was already well established as a professor here at UW. And there's only a couple of years of difference in our ages, and I can only explain that because he was a boy genius and I was a very late bloomer. I came to the UW to visit a friend of mine who had a postdoctoral fellowship here, and when she heard that I had not yet met Steve, she marched me up to Denny Hall. And I sat in his office and we had a very pleasant chat for about half an hour. And then the next day, I was in a taxi speeding to SeaTac Airport on my way home to Michigan. And it turned out I had a very chatty taxi driver. And he asked me, well, how do you like Seattle? And I said, oh, I love this place. It's just so lovely. And he said, well, why don't you move here? And I said, well, that would never happen. Because the one job I could have in this town is already occupied by somebody who's relatively young, loves it here, and will never leave. And so I cracked the joke that graduate students sometimes crack. I think about this now that I'm no longer a graduate student. I said, the only way I'm going to get that job is if I hire a hitman. And the taxi driver turned around. Remember, he's speeding 70 miles an hour down I-5. He turns around, he looks me right in the eye, and he says, I can arrange that. That's all I could do to gasp out. It was a joke. And I was cudgeling my brains trying to remember, did I mention my name, or did I mention Steve's name, the kind of job that I was aspiring to? And the rest of the trip, the taxi driver was just laughing demonically. Still chuckling when he dropped me off at curbside at the airport. So this is what it was like I had this moment where I could have struck a Faustian bargain with the devil. And I turned away and said, no, I can't do that. And that's how I ended up here at UW. To enjoy so many years of really treasured fellowship with Steve. One of the things I'm really going to miss, although I'm hoping maybe we can lure him back, even in retirement, is that it's been a tradition in our department to have Steve do a musical offering in our graduation ceremony. And I understand that we have one in store for us today. Is that right? Okay, so I'll segue to that.
To follow that. And I'm just so moved by the expression. Can people hear me in the back? I was privileged on Thursday night to attend the Ravens Feast, which is the Native American graduation celebration at the University of Washington. And I was very impressed by one of the speakers who said when we speak, we should not use a microphone. We should speak with our chest because we're speaking from our heart. And so I find that easier to do if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. It's a little bit overwhelming to think that I've taught my last class, that I've graded my last paper. Actually, I have 4 to go. And that I'm going to be leaving the University of Washington, at least as a permanent place to hang out after 43 years.
Wow.
And leaving the Anthropology department, the School of Environmental and Forest Sciences, the China Studies, and the campus of the UW. I love all these places that we go. And going through Red Square, even though it's ugly, I love it. and the Greek garden and going down to the pool and all of these places. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss my colleagues so much. And I want to say something about my graduate students, because I don't think there's a single one who's learned as much from me as I have from them. And I think that's been the secret to keeping this up as a professor for so long, is that Confucius said, anytime that I see 3 people walking, one of them will be my teacher. And that's the way I've felt about my colleagues and my students and everyone that I've associated with here at the University of Washington. Now, with regard to anthropology specifically, we all know that we have different kinds of anthropology. We have so-called 4 fields. We have linguistics, we have cultural anthropology, we have archaeology, we have biocultural anthropology. And sometimes there's a little bit of, what should I say, less than complete meeting of the minds between these four approaches. At the same time, they all have something in common, and that's field work. And so, when I was a lad, in my 40s, in 1987, I decided that I would give a show for the Anthropology department, and it was called Fieldwork. And this is the first anthropology song that I ever composed for a public performance, and it's called Fieldwork. And I thought this might be a way to go out. So, have you ever suffered from a melody tougher than not knowing what to do? Did you ever sit around on your own home ground and let inertia get to you? Did you ever find yourself sitting on a shelf or stewing in a slow, slow stew? Well, try not to pout, because I can work it out. Yes, I've got the cure for you. You gotta go do field work. When you once done field work, you'll never feel quite the same. It'll give you a whole new outlook, or professor ain't my name. You gotta go do field work. That's the name of the game. With your camera very steady and your notebook at the ready, you'll participant observe. If your cortex isn't dormant, you will find a new informant around every rustic curve. If you'll find it very pleasant in the ethnographic present, it will bring back a youthful verb. No, it doesn't matter where, from the Arctic to Sahara, any field will serve. But you gotta go do field work. That's the name of the game. And you gotta write about field work. If you ever want any fame, it'll give you a whole new positionality. And I hope it won't be lame. You gotta go do field work. That's the name of the game. But if it's inconvenient, if your schedule isn't lenient, if you can't get away this spring, if you haven't got a grant or a rich eccentric aunt to afford you a perfect fling, if you're stuck at UW, don't you cry and don't you blubber, because I got the next best thing. Come to graduation, tell the kids congratulations, and listen while I sing. Guys, you gotta come here, field work. That's the name of the song. When you have once heard field work, you'll be glad I'm not staying long. It'll give you a whole new rhyme scheme. And correct me if I'm wrong. You gotta go do field, you gotta come here, field work. That's the name of the playing the game, and the ain't no shame in the I'm not blaming you or defaming you. That's the name of the song.